Hi everybody! I'm working on a crock pot again. I am doing a turkey thing today. Let me tell you about it. This is going to be turkey thighs with some kale, some rutabaga, and some celery root. And I want to talk to you about the beauty of root vegetables in the crock pot and how soft and delicious they become and how to make them not bitter, which sometimes they can be, at least the ones that we're allowed to have on SIBO. So let's get started. This is a rutabaga. And I didn't think that I liked rutabagas, to tell you the truth, until I learned how to cook them properly, because they're a little bit bitter. That's one of the reasons that I dice them kind of small, because I don't want one huge hunk of rutabaga in my mouth. So I did that before I started recording here, and I'm just going to throw those in the bottom of the crock pot so I can talk to you about this freaky celery root. I don't know if you guys have used this at all, but this is a fantabulous vegetable that's great for replacing things that you wish you could have, like mashed potatoes, for example. Doesn't it look like an alien from outer space? Don't even try to peel these bad boys. I chop off, you feel like you're wasting a lot, that's the way it goes. I chop off the round ends a little bit so I have a nice stable, safe surface, and then I just use a knife to cut all the way around, get all the hairy little furry stuff off. Okay, make sure we get all of that skin off there. And then, boop, into the sink. And then I usually wipe this off a little bit because there's a lot of hairy little furry kind of dirty things that I don't want on my pretty celery root. I'm gonna do the same thing with my knife, as a matter of fact. Okay, so a safe way to cut things that are round so they're not rolling all over creation is, again, to put a flat surface on the bottom for stability, and then cut them first vertically into evenly thick slices so they cook evenly, and then cut them into matchsticks. Those are pretty fat matchsticks, but you know what I mean. And then cut them into squares. This means you don't have to make 80 million cuts, which, you know, that's what takes another 45 minutes. So, efficient. Okay, throw those in the crock pot, and this becomes the base for your turkey thighs. Okay, the other thing that becomes the base is my kale. Now, this is kale that I stripped off its stalks and put in a spinner and washed so that it would be ready to go. That's one of the tickets to success. If you have to do everything from the beginning, you're gonna say, you know what, it would be a lot easier to just have a grilled cheese sandwich, and then you're not gonna get better. So I do that when I bring things home from the store. And then I cut using the claw. This is a little knife tip, by the way, so my fingers don't get mixed up with the greens and chopped off, because that's not tasty or attractive. This can be a super rough chop. This is gonna break down like crazy once it gets into the crock pot. You can put in as much as you want. I am not big on measuring, right? It's just use what you have, chop it up. That's the beauty of the crock pot. Here is a little wonderful trick as well. When I open a can of tomato paste, because you hardly ever use the whole can, right? I take tablespoons full and put them into a little plastic wrap for the freezer. And then you can just take what you need and put the rest back. If it's super frozen, I hold them between my hands for a couple of seconds, and that's enough to separate it from the plastic. I am going to put 2 tablespoons full of this into here because I want it to have a little bit of richness. You know, you don't want it to be too soupy. That's kind of depressing. My husband always says he finds soup depressing, because soup and tea, because it makes him feel poor. He doesn't like watery, thin things. So I thicken it up a little bit with tomato paste. Now, let's talk about these turkey thighs. I am going to spice them up a little bit with some hot paprika. Pimentón picante, because I like a little bit of spice in this. I sometimes get tired of the traditional spices that go with turkey recipes. This is not Thanksgiving, this is almost March. I'm feeling more springy. So I want to put something on here that's just a little bit unique. You may already know that I'm a cumin freak. I think I mentioned this in almost every episode. I love the tangy flavor of this, and it's a nice balance. Again, I am not measuring, I am sprinkling, right? I tend to go a little bit heavier than I would when I'm using the crock pot, because these flavors can diminish when they're cooking for a long time. And speaking of which, I am using these huge chunks of salt. They're just gonna fall right off here. I don't really even know why I'm bothering trying to make them stick. These are awesome for the Crock-Pot because they can melt and assimilate into the sauce. You might not want a big chunk like that. If you weren't cooking this for a long time, you need for it to break down a little bit, but that is pretty much it. I am going to lay, see? I am going to lay these in here atop their beautiful bed of veggies. And now I will put the salt that all fell off of there in here. And then you can see that I've also got this already prepared thing of bone broth that I made. I've actually learned recently how important it is to put meaty bones and not just marrow bones, because it gives you that nice brown flavor instead of that drab sort of not very appealing flavor and appearance. And I'm going to pour this in as usual. The rule with Crock-Pots is that you want to have it come probably about halfway up the pot. I am going to err on the side of less versus more, because if this was coconut milk or something that was going to get thick, I wouldn't worry about it as much. I don't like things watery in the Crock-Pot, so I'm going to minimize the amount that I put in, and I can always go back later and add a little bit more if I feel like it. That is it. How long did that take? 10 minutes? I'm starting this a little bit late, actually. It's 3 o'clock already. I'm going to say by 7:30 it's going to be done. That's not too bad. Pop it on over here. I already turned this on while I was cooking so that we would jump right to it as opposed to having to wait 15 minutes for it to heat up. And now I'm done. Okay, let's finish up this Crock-Pot. I cooked it for about 4 hours, my turkey thighs, and then I separated them from the veggies and the stock. Look at that, it's still warm. And I chopped it up. I like it kind of rustic style. I'm looking to see if my daughter is coming out. No, my dog is coming out. Hi, Lunabelle. I want to show you how I did it though on the last one with my hands. Okay, no picky like cutting things off the bone and trying to get around the cartilage, and it's so much faster to just yank the meat off the bone, throw it away, wash your hands, dry your hands so your knife doesn't slip, and then rough chop this. You know, you could make it small. I like a rustic sort of chunky style stew. I think it makes soupy stew a lot more appealing. Okay. And you can, oops, there's still a little bit of bone in there. See, my dog smells this. She can smell meat from a mile away. Here, little buddy, you want a little piece? Here you go. All right, pick it up. Throw it in the bowl. With your favorite tools, your hands, right? Oh, that's beautiful. Stir it up. Let's see if I can make it so that you can see this. Get this out of the way a little bit. Okay, so this turned out to be on the soupy side versus the stewy side. This is something that happens in the Crock-Pot when you don't use thickeners like arrowroot or cornstarch or flour or things that people often put in Crock-Pots to make them more thick and stew-like. I don't mind that whatsoever. If you wanted to thicken this up a little bit, one of the things you could do is take a big spoonful and put it in the blender, maybe 2 spoonsful, and turn it into a thicker sort of puree that then you blend back into the soup and have a stewier feel. But I decided that I want to leave it like this, and potentially I'll put it over rice on occasion. But I want to have a soup because of other things that I have in the fridge right now that are in the thicker stew sort of category. So this is something I put in my daughter's lunchbox. I put it in a thermos for her. My husband will take it to work. Everybody eats this. There's nothing weird about it. I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about how to make these bitter root vegetables more appealing, take away some of that bitterness, doing it through those spices that I talked about, the cumin. You know, I mean, we've got rutabaga in here, which is a bit bitter. We've got kale in here, which is a bit bitter. If you add salt, if you add rich sort of spice flavors, that detracts from that. Another thing you can do is put just a little hint of vinegar and lemon, which also I'm sorry, vinegar or lemon, which also sort of counterbalances that bitter taste. So these are ways that you learn to work with vegetables that don't have that sweet sort of twist to them that we've gotten so used to in our culture. So anyway, hopefully this is something that you'll make for yourself soon. It's super easy. I'll get like 5 meals out of this. It's even good for breakfast.